When we look at dinosaur bones in a museum, it is easy to view them as static puzzle pieces. A scattered skeleton can tell us how tall an animal stood or how much it weighed, but it rarely shows us what it actually did on a Tuesday afternoon. But the brutal, everyday reality of prehistoric life out in the wild was fast, chaotic, and relentlessly violent. Every so often, the fossil record captures an animal in the exact second it made the worst decision of its life. These are action fossils, creatures frozen forever mid-blunder, mid-fight, or mid-meal. Beyond the grim humor of these Darwin Awards lies a set of forensic crime scenes. These specimens capture the physical evidence of a fatal error in a way a lone bone never could. By reverse engineering these specific fatal miscalculations, we witness the extreme biological limits that governed prehistoric life, and exactly what happened when those animals pushed past them. Sometimes, the most lethal risk in an ecosystem was simply being in the wrong place at the worst possible time. Take the late Jurassic mudflats of modern-day Switzerland, where animals of drastically different sizes shared the same cramped terrain. Here, paleontologists uncovered the earliest recorded case of roadkill. A wandering dwarf sauropod, a giant long-necked herbivore, slammed its massive foot down directly onto a rusting turtle, flattening it instantly and leaving it buried for 150 million years. If that was a stroke of passive bad luck, other fossils reveal an internal biological glitch. Millions of years of evolution wired marine predators with aggressive, split-second reflexes designed to snap up slippery prey before it escaped. This diagram shows exactly why one of those split-second decisions was a fatal error. We have the fossil of a 15-foot Ichthyosaur, a dolphin-shaped marine reptile that attempted to swallow a 13-foot Thalattosaur in a single bite. The predator was barely larger than its prey, and the geometry simply didn't work. It choked and died with the entire animal still lodged in its throat. A similar short circuit happened to a spear-snouted fish called Aspidorhynchus. It saw a shadow skimming the ocean's surface and instinctively struck. But the target was a pterosaur, a flying reptile with a wingspan far too large for the fish to actually eat. The fish drove its jaws straight through the reptile's wing, tangling them together and dragging both animals to the bottom of the sea. Hunger and hyper-reactive reflexes kept these predators alive day to day, but these specific snapshots proved that those hardwired instincts could completely override basic physical limitations, ending in mutually assured destruction. Active combat pushed these risks even higher. In places like the late Jurassic Morrison Formation of North America, the evolutionary arms race created an ecosystem where the herbivores walking around could easily butcher the carnivores hunting them. To understand the stakes of a prehistoric hunt, look at the famous fossil capturing a Velociraptor locked in a death match with a sheep-sized Protoceratops. The heavily beaked herbivore bit down with enough force to shatter the raptor's arm, while the predator drove its sickle claw deep into the Protoceratops's neck. Back in the Morrison ecosystem, herbivores carried even heavier artillery. The Stegosaurus evolved one of the most lethal defensive weapons in biological history, the thagomizer. These were 4 huge, sword-sized spikes mounted at the end of a heavily muscled tail. We know exactly how dangerous that weapon was because we have the remains of an Allosaurus, the apex predator of its day, that took a gamble on a Stegosaurus and lost. A single swing sent a tail spike directly through the predator's pelvis, breaking the bone and triggering an infection that slowly killed it. Being at the top of the food chain offered no absolute safety. The relentless pressure to secure enough calories meant that carnivores had to routinely wager their own lives against heavily armored targets just to get dinner. The ultimate test of prehistoric survival is the Tyrannosaurus rex. It is easy to look at a skeleton this massive and assume an adult T-Rex was practically invulnerable to physical threats. But the fossil record tells a grueling story. Take Sue, one of the most complete T-Rex specimens ever discovered. Her bones read like a traumatic medical history. She endured multiple broken ribs and a leg bone so severely infected that it swelled to twice its normal circumference. Even more brutal are the distinct, healed puncture wounds punched directly through her lower jawbone. These aren't accidental scrapes. They are the result of targeted, extreme violence. We know exactly who inflicted that kind of damage, thanks to another specimen known as Stan. His skull is peppered with deep gouges that perfectly match the size and shape of another T-Rex's teeth, proving that these massive predators routinely engaged in bloody combat over territory and resources. One of those bites was so powerful, it pierced the back of Stan's head and went straight into his brain case. In almost any other animal, that is an immediate death sentence. But Stan survived, and the bones slowly healed over. Evolution gave the T-Rex devastating jaw strength, but it also engineered them with the staggering immune responses and bone-healing capabilities required to survive the only creature capable of hunting them, each other. When we strip away the Hollywood image of flawless, unstoppable movie monsters, we are left with real, highly fallible biological organisms making split-second bets with their lives. Evolution is never a clean, straightforward march towards physical perfection. It is a chaotic process built entirely on high-stakes trial and error. Every level of the prehistoric food chain was governed by that risk. Animals had to navigate a spectrum of danger that ranged from stepping in the wrong patch of mud to the fatal misfires of their own hunting instincts to desperate combat with heavily armored prey. The prevalence of such severe injuries across the fossil record reveals a world where species persisted for millions of years, despite an environment that punished even minor physical errors with a slow death. We usually celebrate their dominance, but it is their absolute worst days, perfectly preserved in stone, that finally let us see what it took to survive in a world where every meal could be your last.